Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Tonight we have a great guest, the founder of the Oregon Hemp Fest and the Oregon Growers Cup. He also puts on Growers Cups in other states like Arizona, Missouri, New Mexico. Nathan Marsh. So stay tuned for that. It's a great interview. We have some video from this year's Oregon Hemp Fest, which happened back in summer solstice last week. But before that, as we always do, let's bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, isn't it cute? They're dancing leaf to leaf there. Anyway, uh, if you are a loved one or looking for help finding a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit anywhere in the United States, we can help you. Just give us a call at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nathan Marsh of the Oregon Growers Cannabis Cup, right? And the Oregon Hemp Fest.
Yeah, Oregon Growers Cup, and then we've also called it the Oregon Legacy Cup in some states as well. So, yeah. Nice to be on.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming back. It's been probably since your first Hemp Fest 10 years ago, I think, that we had.
I think it was close, first or second year, maybe. I don't know that it was right out of the gate, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's 8 or 9 years, and the whole environment around cannabis has shifted. I often tell people, I got involved back in the 70s when I went to my first cannabis rally when I was 18. But it's gone from being, a political movement to a criminal enterprise to being an industry now. People say, "Oh, what do you do in the industry?" Well, when I got
long story. That's a big box to unpack.
Yeah, really.
For both of us, yeah.
So you started the Hemp Fest, though. Tell us why you started, and your history, and what brought you to start the Oregon Hemp Fest 10 years ago, and what's your future?
Yeah, my main thing, when I was growing up in Denver, I lived a lot of different places, and I was born in Crescent City, California. But I ended up living in Montana, and then when I was, 14, I was in Denver. I just moved there, and inner city kind of Colorado. And this is, of course, before legalization. And then my dad passed away from, he was an alcoholic, and he died drunk driving. So I kind of grew up in a, alcoholic family, dealing with the issues of that. And it really, I turned to cannabis. This is when I was 16, is when my dad died, and I was living in Colorado. And cannabis for me and music really were the things that kept me together emotionally and mentally through that period. And then it just really became one of those activists. I felt like it was a civil right to be able to partake and enjoy cannabis. And I'm seeing alcohol destroying families and having huge effects on my life and other people. But here, this plant that helps people and as a medicine and all these different benefits is illegal. So at that point, I sewed a cannabis leaf onto my backpack, and I was going to high school and kind of trying to be a rebel in that aspect. And of course,
and that was in Colorado.
Yeah, this is in Denver, and it was during the time of the Crips and Bloods and all that. So Denver police had way more to worry about than me with a backpack, with a pot leaf on it. So it was a small act of rebellion, and it, just kind of pushed me into that. What can I do to try to push this towards legalization? And as a teenager, I didn't really have many good ideas. So, other than just being a rebel and smoking pot as a,
What year was that?
uh,
About what year?
it would have been 92, 93 ish around
Okay.
there. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm 48. I'm going on 50 or getting there a couple years now. But, and then, fast forward years later, and it was about 2014, 2013. I'd lived in Seattle, and before 2013, I think it was probably 98 was the first hemp fest around there, maybe maybe actually 96, 97 was probably the first hemp fest in Seattle that I went to. And it really, was like everything I wanted it to be. And it was, kind of like I'd made it to heaven from a
Right.
cannabis activist
Yeah, for
standpoint.
people who haven't been to the Seattle Hemp Fest, which hasn't happened since the pandemic,
Yeah.
it
Right.
was the largest marijuana protestival. It's what
Yep.
they called
Yep.
it in America, and they would have
Yep.
250,000 people at times on the waterfront. And
Crazy.
it was
Yeah.
often 150,000 was an average day.
Yeah. And just feeling that community too, because that was really what drove me because the activism part was obviously important, but that community of everybody working towards a higher goal, and then coming together and celebrating it, and the protestable part. So that really left an impact on me. And then I ended up moving back to Oregon, or actually not back, but well, actually it was back because I'd lived in Oregon for a little bit and then moved to Seattle, then moved back to Oregon. But in 2013, 14, I was running a call center for Nintendo, customer service department down in Oregon. And the headquarters were in Seattle. I still had family in Seattle, so I was going up there a lot. And I met John Sajo, who was, the guy that got, was part of Voter Power, that got medical cannabis for everybody in Oregon in '98. So I kind of met him and learned about his history, and in between that time too, I had also went to Condi's Hemp Fest here in Oregon, which
The World Hemp
hemp
Expo, what was it? It
X,
was
yeah.
the Wii
I don't
Festival.
remember. Yeah, exactly. But it was kind of Oregon's version of the Hemp
Extravaganza.
Fest.
That was
Yeah.
it. World
One
Hemp
year.
Symposium and Extravaganza. And it was
Yeah.
sponsored by High Times. High
Yes.
Times operated another Wii festival back in Michigan, and the owners of that property were killed in a shootout. And it's another story, though. But
Jeez. Well,
yeah.
and that's
Condi
actually what I was
was
going to
the
say about
police.
Condi, is they ran him out of the country. The federal
he's in
government
belief.
ran him out. Yeah. And so here I was, legalization was coming up. I was talking to John Sajo. We started a nonprofit because we thought that all of the medical growers in Douglas County in Oregon, where I live, would be able to jump in. And so there was a real intelligent effort to try to get organized and lobby for things that would affect it. And of course, the end of that story didn't go good because the county opted out and didn't allow any of those medical growers. So the nonprofit kind of fizzled away after about a year. But in that time, in 2015, it was legalization was coming. And so I, had my history with Seattle and ended up, reaching out to them. And we basically became the licensed Hemp Fest, representing the same kind of model here in Oregon. Although it was a different model in the aspect of location and camping and a lot of different things as far as the way the event went. But yeah, so that was kind of a long-winded version of how we got there. But we, in 2015, started the first Oregon Hemp Fest license with Seattle. And then I also started the first Oregon Growers Cup, which was a cannabis cup competition, because I just kind of knew, hey, it's legal. These are the things that are going to come about that I think would be good to be doing. And then in the beginning, the idea was that it was going to be a financial vehicle for the nonprofit. And I was still going to work with Nintendo and not have to worry about income and all that. But it kind of morphed into nobody was doing any work on it except me. And it was my money that was, pretty much propping it all up. And then the nonprofit fizzled away. So it turned into basically me doing it, or deciding to do it by myself and hiring people and that kind of stuff, or just stop. And now we're full time. I don't work for Nintendo anymore. Haven't for a long time. And
What did you
now
do for Nintendo?
I ran their call center for their customer service department. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so they're based out of Seattle, the Nintendo of America, and but they, the expensive, how expensive it is. As a matter of fact, you walk in there and there's a temp agency on site because it's really expensive to hire people to do customer service. And down here where I was in Oregon, they could get cheap people to talk on the phone that didn't have an accent, and I was responsible for sometimes almost 200 employees. So that business experience, though, that I had really helped me, manage and run the business of doing the cannabis events. And like I said, now we're a full-time, all year round cannabis event company, which has its good and bads, I'll say. So, yeah, but yeah, that's how we got here.
I see. So, tell us about the most memorable moments in the 10-year or 9 years so far history of the Oregon
Hemp Fest.
Fest, and then the Growers Cups too. Because
Yeah,
now you're doing Growers Cups in other states as well, right?
Yeah, so we kind of had an interesting journey. We were doing the Hemp Fest, and the Hemp Fest has never been a financial vehicle, really. It's
I know.
Yeah, so I'm speaking to the choir, right?
Right.
And I loved how me and you were chatting, and you had mentioned, oh yeah, we would donate this amount of money to throw the Hemp Fest every year, and I've been pretty much doing that.
I'll say it.
Yeah.
For the Seattle Hemp Fest, the last 3 years, I was the presenting sponsor, and I paid them $50,000 a year.
Wow.
For about 10 years before that, I've been the presenting sponsor. Maybe it was 12 years. Started at 15,000, and it gradually worked its way up to 50. But I also sponsored the Portland Hemp Stock Festival, and I would spend from $30,000 to $80,000 more than we brought in for the
Well, you didn't really just sponsor it; you threw it, didn't you? You were the person.
I was in your role.
Right.
But I didn't make it my full-time business. And I did have volunteers, and just like the Seattle Hemp Fest does.
Yeah, and we kind of I had to change the model pretty quickly to a paid model, mainly because of the music. I know it sounds weird, but in Seattle, the music was free. They didn't get paid.
I paid our musicians, most of them.
I did too.
I paid various bands to come and play, including Lucas Nelson and the Promise of the Real, and John Trudell and Bad Dog, and, lots of others, Los Marijuanos.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny living in your shadow too, because we've had a lot of people over the years say, "Oh, you're the one in Portland, the hemp, on the by the river or the water there," and we're like, "No, that's the hemp stock," and they haven't happened in a while. But yeah, people still remember your legacy, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
as far as yeah, and that's hard. I can't really say. I think that the best thing for me, rewarding wise, has been to kind of carry the torch from you guys, because I really felt like, I was coming into a generation that, like, Condi was ran out of the country, and here I am, getting my permits, legal permits, and talking to the police department and everything, because they had to all swallow it because it was legal now. So I think I felt a little bit of responsibility to try to keep the vision alive, and I think being able to do it for so long and ride that wave of consciousness and getting, access to everybody. And it's been a little bit of a struggle thinking of how the medical market has morphed and been under attack in a lot of ways. And then I try to see the silver lining of that, everybody. I mean, I have pounds to give away now because I can grow 4 in my backyard every year, and so can my neighbor. And so in Oregon, we have some unique things that can help patients in just different access points than what it used to be. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, the best memorable times. There definitely has been what is, kind of a curve up and down, I think a lot of people now are seeing, these states like Colorado, I think a couple years ago started hitting its decline in sales for the first time. So, I think it's just like anything, it's going to have kind of an evolution. And even now, I think we had all thought by now maybe all 50 states would be legal and federal legalization. And instead, we're almost seeing the opposite right now with some pressure coming back on. And people like you and a lot of people that had amazing intentions and then have enemies that they never could have dreamed of. And it's just like, wow, there's a lot of naivety that we could just, push love and spread the happiness of marijuana and nobody would stop us. But it's a challenge. You've got to work through it.
Yeah. And we will. We are. I mean, we're seeing huge strides in hemp as it's starting to become allowed, but the stigma of marijuana definitely still slows that down.
Yeah.
And the money from the alcohol industry and the pharmaceutical industry as well. They want to stop cannabis because it's denting their profits.
Yeah. Which is what we've wanted all along. That's a success story for us, I mean, I've wanted to see people get off opiates, and I have, because of marijuana and treat themselves, pain management different and all kinds of stuff. So yeah. Plus RSO.
And highway deaths are down because people aren't drinking as much,
Right.
And so there's a number of benefits in that realm. So tell us about the Growers Cup and what that's like.
Yeah. So the Growers Cup is, it's a cannabis competition. And for us, when we first started in 2015, the real deal for us was it needs to be legit. It's got to be, authentic. And at the end of the day, there's no scientific way to choose a first, second, third place. If you race horses, you can use data to determine who clearly is the winner, right? And with cannabis, it's a lot different because we chose to not use a lab test that says that it has this number. We never really felt that was a good way to do it. And we wanted to bring really a diverse group of judges. And flower, for example, we judge on taste, look, smell, and high. And they all get 5 points, up to 5 points. So you can have a total of 20 points. And you can do fractions, but we have the judges from all different walks of life that are respected people in the community. And it's done blind. So they don't even see the strain name. So they can't have that hit them in any kind of way, bias. And then it's an average of the judges' scores. And sponsors can give us the top tier sponsorship and they still may not win. Matter of fact, they usually don't. So we've had sponsors be mad. They thought maybe they'd do better if they sponsored, but when it's blind and legit, it's just it's either bought or it's not, And so for us, that's been our secret sauce, is just, it's not bought. It's, we get surprised sometimes at who wins and how it should be, And it's interesting because I actually was irritated several years in when a couple brands were winning all the time. And I'm like, how is this really possible? But it was because they were that top of the game and really exceeded everybody. And I guess it's just like in a karate match, or tournament, you're going to see the same guys probably winning that are really at the top. And then they don't always stay there, of course, and that's happened. But yeah, for a while, I was like, man, how's it? This looks like it's rigged because these guys keep winning. But boy, they deserved it and they were earning it. So, and, with High Times kind of crumbling, in my opinion, we were really looking up to Emerald Cup at that point. And now we're kind of in a weird place where Emerald Cup isn't happening anymore. And we're one of the biggest. I mean, I guess it's really only a couple of us. We probably are the biggest cannabis cup event company in the United States right now, as far as doing it in different states. I think we might be close to Leaf Bowl people. But yeah, Oregon leaf does in different states too. So they're nipping our heels, but but it's a lot of responsibility, and trying to go to these other states has been really interesting, just to see all the different rollouts that have happened. But the award ceremony, because all the judging is kind of done before the cup, and then the award ceremony, in Oregon, we just give out pounds of weed to everybody because we can, and companies can't. But I'm not a cannabis company, so we give away a bunch of free stuff, and have great music, give out trophies, and have a great time.
All right. Yeah, I note that on Friday night at your Cannabis Cup, which you've got Halcyon Massive. I love their.
Well, that's the Hemp Fest. Yeah.
Huh? Oh yeah,
you're talking about the Hemp Fest. Yeah.
You probably don't. Do you have music at the Oregon Growers Cup?
It's funny. We usually do, but it's always the cherry on top, and sometimes people don't care. They're often. It's. I describe the Cannabis Cup as a shotgun wedding versus the Hemp Fest as a 2-day camping festival where everybody stays. But the Growers Cup's about 6-7 hours long, so it doesn't it's not really so it's a day event basically. So
right. Okay. When is that going to be? Tell us when both of them go.
Yeah, so the Hemp Fest is June 20th, 21st. So this Friday, this Saturday. Yeah, I'm not sure when this will go out, but yeah, it's this weekend, and yeah, we put up the dome yesterday, and been doing a bunch of work today, and took some time out to chat with you. And then
so you're located north of Roseburg.
Yeah, just north of Roseburg. Yeah,
not right in Oakland itself, though.
Well, yeah. So I'm sitting right now in my office in downtown Oakland, but the event is a couple miles out in the pastures. So yeah, but it's beautiful ranch with oak trees and a creek, and it's really a gorgeous place. And they've actually found competition arrowheads in the creek, and they think that that the Indians used to gather there years ago and have some kind of competitions or festival or something. So that's always been cool to kind of keep that going. And it's going to be summer solstice, so it's a special time for us.
Yeah. So tell us about other states and what your experience is like in doing trying to be an Oregonian out there and go to other states.
Yeah, so I had mentioned kind of earlier, I've lived in a bunch of different states myself. I even lived in Illinois and Colorado, Montana, and stuff. So I feel like I'm somewhat worldly, or USA-ly. I've been to quite a bit, but I was really surprised, going to Arizona, and actually we did do some really cool events called the Canna Chef, which was basically a cannabis cooking competition live that we had people attend, and with Ngayu from Cooking on High Netflix, Ngayu Beelam, and who still is a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he helped MC our Oregon Hemp Stock, and I think he MC'd sometimes at the Seattle Hemp Fest as well.
Yep, he sure did. Yeah, and he's a good friend of mine, and really a partner in crime for me, because he's the MC for all the cups that we do. And anyway, so we did a cooking competition in Arizona and in Seattle, and then in Portland, and they were all amazing. Everybody had a great time except the pocketbook. And so we just couldn't raise enough money. We spent more than we raised every year, and it was just, after a while, we had to give it up. But that turned me to about, I think, what was it, 4 years ago, we started our first cup outside of Oregon, and we did Arizona first year, and it was a little disheartening, to be honest, because I'd come from very vibrant activism and medical community in Oregon, and knew a lot of people that were even the fact that we were able to be shut out by the local county. There was still Lane County just north of me, a bunch of they were able to become legal farms. So I knew a lot of people that ended up going in the rec market, and it was I guess in the beginning it felt like maybe 90% normal small business and 10% corporate rich stuff. And when I went to Arizona, it was like very quickly, it was like, wow, there's 12 guys in a hot tub that ordered the one pizza and they split up all the pieces, you know. And so it really felt very controlled, and the community was kind of very um, divisive, separate. It's not that they don't have a cannabis community. It just didn't feel very, very familiar to me. And we went to Missouri and had some struggles our first year. Our second year, which happened last year, was amazing. The first year we'd kind of had some partners that we had never done partners, and there's probably a good reason, because you know you're going to do it your way if you do it your way, and having partners is always a question. But this last year we had an amazing Cannabis Cup. They have a good community there that needs community leaders, and I don't necessarily run around and lead people in the traditional fashion maybe, but by doing these events and getting everybody together and letting them all network and group together, it's kind of that position. And that's really what brings me joy, is bringing there's so many things that are there for us to argue about, it seems like. And I've been preaching that for 10 years, and it's getting worse every day, it feels like. So for me, it's a great way to get people together just over the love of the plant, and really focus on community and art and culture. And it's kind of morphed to be much more than just about cannabis, but almost like cannabis wrapped up in a moral and ethical ethos, So is what we're really trying to push. So yeah, and then we did get, this year we got approached by CVCAN, which is Coachella Valley Cannabis Alliance Network. And they are based out of Desert Hot Springs down in California. And they approached us hey, we wanted to do a cup, but we know you guys have been doing it forever, and wanted to team up. And so we're not really teamed up with them, but they're a major sponsor, and they're kind of helping us, reach out to people. But we're going to be doing our first cup down there in October. So the Missouri one is August 23rd. And then the Coachella Valley or Coachella Legacy Cup is what it's called, is the first one's going to be October 18th at the Mary Pickford estate, which is a really cool estate. Mary Pickford, I didn't even know who she was, but she's one of the very first female Hollywood actresses. Yeah, movie star. Yeah. And so her estate is these houses that she turned into mansions and then connected them, and there's a courtyard, and it's a really beautiful place. We're lucky and honored to be able to celebrate a cup there. So yeah,
that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So what other topics should we touch on here, Nathan? Do you have anything that I haven't raised?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm curious, from your standpoint, you've been here, even longer than I have, and you've, I think, probably have a really good long curve on where things are going. And one of the things we had touched on, is cannabis expanding or retracting. And so do you feel that we're in a decline phase as far as legalization and activism, or are we firing up on different levels?
I think we're firing up on different levels for sure.
Okay.
It's not,
Yeah.
I don't see it declining. I don't see them taking the right away that's been given without, they're trying to do it now in Texas in terms of their Senate Bill 3 and making THC legal. At the same time, there's 10,000 people employed in the hemp and cannabis industry down there in Texas. They're really making strides in hemp construction. There's stores all over the place. And, but, they're pushing the limits of what the law is, but they want to increase the severity of the law with Senate Bill 3. So it's passed the House and the Senate as we sit here. By the time this airs, it might be decided. I think I saw there are 7 more days for the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, to, who's a paraplegic guy, so probably knows how it helps people with severe injuries. But he can just not veto it, and it's a pocket veto. and
Mm.
then it wouldn't pass. And so that might be the best outcome. I don't think he's going to
Yeah.
outright veto it. The question is, he's going to sign it. Well, he's been sitting on it for a while. It reminds me back in the day when Governor Kitzhaber set on the recriminalization of marijuana, and he eventually signed it, and we had to do a referendum to stop him, and we did
Jeez.
stop him quite decisively
Yeah.
back in '98, the same year we had medical marijuana on the ballot, which
Yeah.
was
Voter
'98.
power. Yeah. Wow.
57 for medical to stop the recriminalization, and 67 for medical marijuana. It's kind of a complicated campaign saying no on recrim, yes on medical, but we actually want every single county in the state to stop recrim. The
Wow.
medical marijuana vote was closer. That put a decisive end to it because it had taken place in other states that had recrim. And so, but I think things are going to change for the better. There have been changes in international law that make it a lot easier. Other countries are making it legal now.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing about a big cannabis festival in Trinidad, Tobago. So
Okay.
we might be investigating that or interviewing some of those people in our upcoming shows. But
Yeah, I've heard Europe is really expanding a lot right now.
yeah, and it's been big already. Their
Yeah.
business conferences have been quite
Oh
large.
yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, Cannabis. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're closing down in Barcelona and moving north into the Basque country.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name of the city. I know it starts with a B. I can come up with the name. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think things are going to keep getting better. We've been through a lot of dark days, a lot of ups and downs. Remains to be seen. I think we need changes in our government. How those can come about, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and and from my standpoint, it seems like it's always been a push and pull between people that want free access and I actually at my core I wish weed was just free for everybody. That there was no cost to anybody. But our society runs on dollars and cents. So
I grow my own. I have
me
to
too.
buy dirt. I have to buy fertilizer. I get organic fertilizer.
Nice.
But it cost, even not buying it costs something.
Yeah. Oh
no
yeah.
doubt.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, and it's another thing too. I think that's such a big benefit to being in Oregon is that access to grow and the climate to do it. So many people are in this environment where Arizona, you're not growing weed outside. So
not in Sandrock there.
No.
Quite
So
tough.
it's just there's a lot, I get frustrated sometimes about some things and the way things are run in Oregon and then I remind myself that it's a lot better than a lot of other states as far as what people have to deal with access. So
Right.
a lot different.
Yeah, well, when federal legalization comes, and it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's going to happen during Trump's administration. I'll have to see what kind of changes come after that. But maybe. But the Republicans are going to pass it.
Well, my big concern with it is, and this is, I think, because I talk to a lot of people too that are like, oh man, as soon as legalization federally happens, it's going to be so much better. And there's all these dreams that, Oregon can be this huge exporter. And I don't deny that those things, but the big concern that I have is, and this is being seen very heavily in California and Oregon and all states, is that, when you add 2 or 3 layers of taxes to something, and then you add the layers of brick and mortar employees, insurance, and all these things, and you've got a guy that can grow in his basement and make for way less than what you have to charge. And now if it goes federally legal, there might be this other federal tax on it. So I think that you're going to really just create two planets, the black market planet and white market planet. And there's going to be a lot of reasons to go black market in some of these states if people have to pay 5 times the amount. Rosin and dabs is a good example too, where the cost is just, you can, on the black market, there's just really a lot more affordable dabs and solventless. So, and again, it's a debate whether we need both or if we should have one or the other, but I don't know that it's ever gonna, and and then me growing in my yard, and if my neighbor gives me tomatoes, is that black market? Because I swapped it. So
Well,
it's,
we
I don't
can
know.
we can legally give away, what is it, 1 or 2 ounces
Yeah.
to people who aren't medical, and you can
Right.
give a medical patient up to 1.5 pounds.
Yeah. But it's such a weird gray, black and white. I guess there's a lot of nuance to all of this, and circumstances that affect different things, and which is again why I feel like in Oregon, medical patients, as much as the medical program's pretty much been destroyed, patients just have different access points now. And actually that's one of the things too. So I only know one person now in Southern Oregon that's doing a medical clinic, and you're still doing yours. So
Yeah.
have you seen, because everybody's kind of not doing it, are you getting bombarded, or how is it going with you guys with the medical stuff?
We're doing better. Our old, we went through a hostile corporate takeover in 2016 by a Israeli natural gas company, Adira, funded by George Soros, and a group of Canadians. And they came in and basically using forgeries, stole our business. But in the end, they ripped off all our landlords and all our doctors. So
Right.
one of our doctors kind of inherited the business and a couple of our employees. And then recently, the medical board started pulling doctors' licenses that had helped medical marijuana pediatric patients. So they came in and started examining the medical files of physicians' pediatric patients. The first one that I know of was Dr. David Knox. And so he lost his license. And then Dr. Sean Hedman lost his license for helping pediatric patients. They could have continued to fight it, but to fight the medical board was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they would have had to pay the medical board like $60,000 for their expenses. So they decided to retire. They were at retirement age. But because Dr. Hedman had all of our old patients, now he and his other employees, who we remain friendly with, are sending all those patients back to us. And so our numbers have increased pretty dramatically, but it's nothing like the old days. It's not like we're seeing patients 5 and 6 days a week. We're seeing patients 1 or 2 days a week, maybe 5 or 6 days a month. So, but that's a lot better than what we had been before Dr. Hedman sent those patients back to us. Before that, it was more like a third or a quarter of what it is now. So we were struggling for a long time. But it's kind of like I won on one level in that our old phone number that they had all that time is now sitting here on my desk. So I'd had it in our clinic in 1999 till that 2016 takeover. But we're seeing a number of patients. We have reached out to dispensaries as well, and so there's some of them that are very supportive. Some of them give cannabis to patients if you have a patient card. So there's some of them here in Portland that are known to do that. I've actually seen one where the price of FICO or RSO had come down to, for patients, $2 a gram. So yeah, pretty inexpensive for patients.
Well, and that's
really good for a cancer patient.
Yeah, and I think I want to touch on something you just said there too. That's just, I don't know if a lot of people realize how much control these medical boards have over doctors. And they don't have much recourse. They can't really appeal, or like you're saying, they'd have to pay $60,000, all this crazy stuff. And it's not just with the cannabis stuff. Pretty much anything that doesn't go with, the status quo gets they can pull your license and stuff.
Well, there was this doctor that appeared on this show many times and helped start the medical marijuana movement with Dennis Prone, named Todd McCurry. Sage would know him real well. But he called it the monomolecular mercantile madness. It's all about the pharmaceutical industry. And they're the ones who people come to see doctors about often, is to access that. And that's where they make a lot of their money. And so that's why the pharmaceutical companies are opposing this, because cannabis as a whole plant medicine threatens their bottom line.
Well, and the fact that you can't be in a hospital and have cannabis in a legal state. I think somebody had told me there may have been an adjustment to that with OHP. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. The law says you can.
OMMP.
The law says you can, but most hospitals won't allow it. I know a patient right now, they told her she couldn't. She objected. And they eventually made her sign a thing saying, it was at her own risk, and she had to smoke it outside, like where you would with tobacco. So she can go out and have some puffs on her pen, as long as she's outside, not in her room.
Well, and the reality, we should be able to treat people with RSO in hospitals for who knows. I mean, it'd be potentially groundbreaking if we did that. So, and I'd heard Israel was supposed to be ahead of the game on that, though. I thought Israel was doing a lot of research on some of the medical stuff.
Well, they have. It was at Hebrew University. They discovered THC back in 1963 and discovered the endogenous endocannabinoid system in Israel. And they're still kind of on the cutting edge that way. And they have a pretty robust medical marijuana program there. But given what's happening to people in Gaza, it's pretty horrific scene there right now. But
and Iran, I mean, we're right in the middle of
a lot of
all
scary
that
things
right now.
for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it still blows me away that an Israeli gas company, decided to be involved in all this. It's crazy.
Well, like I said, I think it was directed by
other people,
by people who just didn't want me to move forward, and they were able to do that. So now I'm. In fact, you know what? The Oregon Hemp Fest is the first event I have sponsored since that corporate takeover back in 2016. At the time, I was the presenting sponsor of the Seattle Hemp Fest, but they canceled that once they took over in June 2016.
Wow. So what was the last year you did hemp stock?
2016. Yeah, we went ahead with it. It was in September of 2016 after the corporate takeover, but I didn't have the financial wherewithal to pay all of the bills in the end. We did a couple of fundraisers and reduced it a little bit, but we defaulted on a lot of our obligations because I just didn't have any money,
Well, and these things get so
expensive. I didn't have any lawyers either, So.
Yeah, I mean, I was always blown away when I was talking to Vivian and he's telling me the budget for how much it costs to throw the Seattle Hemp Fest. And it's like, it's insanity,
It went up to $800,000-$900,000 in some years.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Ours was 50 to 100,000, 120 maybe.
Right.
So.
Wow. Well, and I do mine in an empty field, and it still seems expensive.
The last year we did it, and I think it's more now since 2016. We had to pay the city like $23,000 for the use of the park, and we didn't want to really be at that park. They wouldn't let us go to the park. We wanted to go back to the confluence of the Willamette and the Columbia River at what is Kelly.
That'd be beautiful.
Park. That's where Jack Herr gave his last speech, in fact.
Really?
We would like to see that park renamed the Jack Herr Point Park instead of Kelly Point Park. And I think in the end we'll be successful. He had a major heart attack about 5 minutes after leaving the stage there. And it was tragic, but that was the place we really wanted to be. But the Port of Portland didn't want us to be there. And,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
pushed us back downtown. We got shoved around a few times.
Sure. I bet.
There's more to the story, but I won't go into it
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like I said, I was pretty apprehensive when I was doing the first one. I remember calling the sheriff, and because I was like, all right, I'm part of a nonprofit. We're doing this the right way. I'm gonna, I didn't sell drugs or anything, and so I had nothing. I was just a guy working for Nintendo down here, and so I felt like they couldn't dig up anything against me if they tried. So, but boy, knowing the guy before me had been ran out of the country, and they threatened his kids and stuff, and
You didn't
it
know
was,
about the Weed Festival in Michigan, in Vidalia, Michigan,
I
the
didn't
Rainbow
know.
Farm. They wrote, someone wrote a book about it called Rainbow Farm is Burning, I think. But they
Huh,
came in
right
and
there.
they killed that guy.
Killed him just in a shootout because of the raid.
Yeah. Yeah.
During the
I
raid.
mean, it's a long,
Wow.
complicated story. I don't want to go into all the details.
Sure.
I might get it wrong. But
Yeah.
that was the end. And the thing is, it happened September 8th, 9th, and 10th of 2001. So the next day was September 11th,
11th.
2001. And so it just
Wow.
covered up the whole story. It was major
Sure.
news story on the national news at the time. But of course,
Wow.
the terrorists
Something bigger.
taken
Yeah.
out, got buried.
Wow.
But there is a book
Yeah.
out there about it. So
Huh.
they
I'll have
haven't
to read-
shot us
yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and some people might want to anyway, but
Jeez.
what do you do? It's
What do
pretty
you do?
divisive and conflicting. I don't want to be in a heated argument with anybody.
No.
I mean,
Most
I
marijuana people are
disagree
pretty
with the Trumpians,
cordial.
but boy,
Yeah.
they want to have a heated argument about all their things, and
They
I
do.
don't really want to have that. It's unpleasant.
No.
But
Yeah.
I mean, if I have to, I will, but I prefer not to.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my current. It's funny. The landowner of I won't say which side these guys are, but the landowner of the Hemp Fest is very political in his way, which is on one of the teams, and then the owner of my that I rent from in my office downtown Oakland, he's the exact opposite. So whenever I see them, they kind of vomit on me their political rhetoric from each side, and I'm just like, man, can't we just like each other, focus on stuff that we agree on? And I mean, I have opinions too, but I just feel like we're at this point where trying to get anybody to, be moved by your perspective of things is not realistic. I think you should just, focus on not arguing. Yeah.
Well, there's facts and there's propaganda. That's the way I look at it.
Yes, exactly.
So-
Yeah, we're getting gaslit on both sides. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
side more than the other. But
I
that's
agree.
another
I agree.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad we've had you on here, Nathan. This is Nathan
Yeah,
Marsh,
Paul.
who's been organizing the Oregon Hemp Fest and the Oregon Growers Cups,
Yep.
and
Yep.
in Oregon and elsewhere. So it sounds like you're going to move down to California, and you're doing another one. It'll be your third one in Missouri.
Yeah. I'm not moving, but we'll be doing our first year and and I'm sorry, I left out New Mexico. We did New Mexico the first year this year, and we're going to be doing our second year first quarter will be next year for New Mexico. But yeah, Coachella is in October, and then our third year for Missouri, like you mentioned, is this August 23rd, which is literally our next event after this one. And then the Growers Cup for Oregon will be December 9th or 6th or something like that. The first weekend of December. Have you heard anything about Emerald Cup happening again, or is it?
No.
I've just heard it's done. So
No, I haven't heard anything. I heard, they were doing one in 2 cities last year, but I don't know. I haven't heard any feedback at all. Not if they
Yeah.
haven't posted on social media. I don't know.
Yeah.
If someone wants to reach you, what's the
insiders.
best way to reach you, or about the Oregon Hemp Fest or the
Yeah.
Oregon Growers Cup?
Yeah, so we're small enough that I still look at a lot of emails myself and DMs, but you can send email or DM to you can go to our website, reach us out through there at OregonHempFest.org or OregonGrowersCup.com. We're also on Instagram, which is probably our main platform, and that's Oregon Hemp Fest, New Mexico Growers Cup, or I'm sorry, New Mexico Legacy Cup. Because there was a Growers Cup that was really small, and so we didn't want to use that name. So in New Mexico, it's called the New Mexico Legacy Cup, and the Coachella Legacy Cup, and then the Missouri Growers Cup and Oregon Growers Cup, just to make it confusing. So, but yeah, and then if you're really wanting to search me out individually, I have a very rarely used Instagram account personally, just because I've all these brand accounts. But Iam.pyramid is my personal handle on Instagram. But yeah, I'd love to connect with people, and I'm trying to get more bandwidth to, I mean, it's a bummer. There's a bunch of people in Portland all the time that want to see Madeline Martinez and all kinds of people, and love to even hang out with you. And it's just like, whenever I'm there, I'm like, okay, I've got 50 dispensaries to drop flyers and posters off, and then I'm racing to the next thing. So
I think there's a lot more than that. I've been looking at there's 750.
That's how many I can do at a time.
750 dispensaries. It's probably about a week's work if you want to go to all the dispensaries in the Tri-County area.
Yeah.
And if you want to put Clark County in there across the river, you're talking about 300 different businesses.
It's crazy. That is one thing actually I can announce. We did just get a partnership with a dispensary there in Portland called the Jointery on Killingsworth, and that's going to be it's presented by the Oregon Growers Cup, and basically we are highlighting and showcasing products from winning farms that win the cup over the years. So that's kind of a cool new thing that we're doing. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. We had Nathan Marsh with all of these different enterprises. I wish you the best, Nathan, and I'll see you at the Oregon Hemp Fest here this weekend.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll see you this weekend, Paul. It'll be great to see you in person again.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Keep working to restore.
Venture into the field of growing the cannabis. Maybe selling the cannabis, but definitely smoking the cannabis.
Oh man, I've always wanted to try cannabis.
We are very pleased to be here tonight. Even more so, we're so pleased that everything worked out. The rain just stopped raining. The vibes are high. Thank y'all for coming out here to Hemp Fest. Blessed love. Talking about the rendezvous, strictly medicinal. Don't you try and trick me with your dirty And they brought over a delicious plant. Delicious in every way. And it was grown next to the ganja river. And that's where you get the ganja. Ganja, holy ganja. Hey. Send to me you want to split champagne. 1 split, 50, strictly I agree. We always hustle up the corn so the farmers get paid. 3:30 in the morning, riding dirty down the highway. Cause I know mix up in no Babylon transaction. Rasta me no bother with no bad man. All day from CJ to Ashland, we be hustling. Up to Oakland, I got the Jaeger. I got a brand new bag around papers, and I always keep one. If you know the truth, please sing along now. Let me hear you, let me hear you. I got the champagne. I'm a couple different phenotypes. Double the cost, chem dark parts with no delight. Before the cost that is double that on regular right. Praises up the job for the medicine. Now we need to evidence is stand up in Genesis. Just need the herb unto Adam for his better me, but still Babylon. One fight the Old Testament to what the best it is. Fields of purple and green. Best looking girl this world has ever seen. You can keep your head clear. Keep that blue dream. Champagne and Jaegers all I need up in my scene. I got the champagne. I got the Jaeger. I got a brand new bag of raw papers. Yeah. Okay. It's 2025 and whatnot. I got the champagne. How many people still love Fronton Jaeger? Alright, you're my people. Alright, me too. Still my favorite blood. Oh, I got the champagne. I got the Jaeger. I twist it up, we go put it in the air. Well, I might not have some Jaeger, but I got some bud from the Braveheart. Braveheart got the good bite, gonna roll it up a little, gonna some in the stone, you see. Got the good ganja. Woman, my commander, ganja, leave me see. Woman, got the ganja, leave me see. Woman, hey! I got the champagne, I got the Jaeger. I got a brand new bag of round papers and I'm going to keep one new love later. Listen with the front of the I got the Jaeger. I got a brand new bag of round papers and I'm